Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing another episode in our League of Legends series for the 7.15 patch notes. So, first we're going to talk about the patch notes themselves, give you a rundown of that. Then we're going to go into my metagame predictions. And then we'll finally get down to the tier list itself. Now, I will say if you're new to the channel, this is probably going to be a very long video. I consolidate all of these into just one video because I think it's nice to have them all on one Google Doc, have all the timestamps in one place, and just have the video all in one area. I think it's just a lot easier to navigate. So be sure to check out the description to see the timestamps. You can jump around to your favorite parts. So if you just want to watch the tier list or the metagame analysis, or you just want to hear, you know, what do I think about the Sivir changes, for example, then you can just skip down to that in the timestamps in the description. You can also access this Google Doc as well. So you can skim down and at least read about the parts that you may not want to listen to. You know, I wish everyone would watch the whole thing, but in reality, I know that most people won't have time to, so that's perfectly fine. It's okay. I just really overkill it on information because I would rather people know too much than forget something and leave some things out that might be important otherwise. So this is designed to be almost like a buffet or an audiobook where you can just kind of jump around and find your favorite parts. You can also just listen to it while you're driving, listening, or getting ready for bed, rather, eating some dinner, studying, working around the house, whatever. It's not very visual intensive, so you can just listen to it audio style as just some background if you want to while you're doing other things. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. I will start off with Urgot, the hot new topic for this patch. I really honestly don't think he's going to make that much of a splash in the meta when all is said and done. I think he's okay. Everyone's going to be trying him out, of course. I'm just not really sure what he does specifically that's better than what other champions do right now. But we'll go ahead and take a look at him, and I'll give you my best attempt to analyze him. Now, keep in mind, I have not played this guy on the PvE. I've never seen him. I'm releasing this before I've played a single game on patch 7.15. It took me about 4 hours to research and write this up, and now it's going to take probably another 2 hours to film it, another 2 to process it and upload it. So I always do my patch notes as soon as I can. But I wait until the official patch notes come out, and that's really important to note. There are other YouTubers, I'm not going to call anyone out, but a lot of them look at the Surrender at 20 PvE patch notes, and they take those at face value, and they write up their patch analysis based on that, and that is not always accurate, and I'll show you why in this video. The PBE said they were going to do a lot of different changes to Mundo, and they only did one of those changes. That's very significant, and that's happened in the past. The PBE has talked about Zyra in the past, and those never showed up as well. So I think it's really important to wait till the official patch notes come out, and then I start my research, start the process, and usually release the patch notes the next day after all is said and done. Okay, so he only has 350 range. That's the first thing to notice. That is very, very short range for a ranged champion. I mean, that's like Thresh auto attack range. I think that's even less than Thresh. That's like Rakan auto attack range. This guy has abysmally low range. I mean, he might as well be melee. Actually, I'm kind of curious now. What is Thresh's auto attack range? Is it literally shorter than Thresh's? It is literally much, much shorter than Thresh's, actually. Thresh has a 450 auto attack range. What about Rakan? I think Rakan's is 350. Rakan's is 300, so it's a little bit more than Rakan. But the moral of the story is it is extremely short range for a ranged champion. Very, very short range. So it's really hard to harass with him, is the bottom line. It's really hard. You have to get very up close and personal. He doesn't move very quickly. He does have quite a bit of base armor, base health, and resist. So he's kind of like a tank that just happens to have a little bit of attack range, is how you want to think of him. So he's a lot different than Urgot of the past. Urgot of the past didn't have great range either, but he was more of this, like, you locked on and hit him with these long range, you know, Qs, whereas now it's totally different. So each one of his legs basically has a little indicator around him. So there's going to be 6 little indicators around him. If you attack in one of those directions and one of the leg beacons is up, then it does extra damage. So you do your normal auto attack damage, and you do this bonus damage, which is a percentage of your total AD. So at level 9, it's 65% of your total AD, plus a percentage of their maximum health. So 6% at level 9. So 6% max health. So it's your normal damage, 6% max health, and the 65% of your base AD. So that's a pretty good hit. I mean, that's a pretty good bonus. It's basically double damage. Does this count as on hit? Causes it to fire, dealing this AD. It doesn't say that it can critical strike. So I don't think that, like, if you had an Infinity Edge, this isn't like a Draven thing where it scales with critical strike. I don't believe. Because it's your next attack causes a loaded shotgun to fire. So the shotgun is not your attack. So I believe this counts as an on hit or just some other type of interaction. But it's not, I don't believe it's coded to be part of the auto attack itself. It's a separate hit. So that means that it would not be modified by Ninja Tabi, but it would also not be modified by crit. So I don't think this extra stuff can crit. I think it's not an on hit. It's a weird mechanic. But it can't crit. Okay, so you can't get these super Infinity Edge crits with this. But it does it to everybody, to all enemies. Now, I don't know. It says the angle is 60 degrees, but I don't know the effect radius yet. I don't think it's very far. It's probably not further than his auto attack range. I wouldn't imagine. So 350. But if a bunch of people are clumped up, it would hit all of them. And it doesn't say it does reduced damage if it hits multiple targets. So if everybody's clumped up and you hit them with some of these shotgun blasts, it's really going to tear through people pretty quickly. So that's a nice hit. Decent tank shredding. It's okay. But remember, each little leg can only fire once every 20 seconds or so at level 9, and there's nothing that modifies it. So CDR does not lower this, I don't believe. It doesn't call it a static cooldown, but it says it's a per leg cooldown. Each one has an individual reload timer. I don't think CDR affects it. It's not very clear. Okay. Echoing Flame deals 10% reduced damage to enemies recently damaged in the last 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Is that recently damaged by Echoing Flames, I assume? The grammar's kind of bad there. Recently damaged by Echoing Flames in the last 5 seconds. I assume that's what it means. So if you hit people with multiple instances of this, it won't completely blow them out. It'll do, like, slightly reduced damage. So the name of the game here, then, in laning phase, is you walk up, you want to hit somebody with it, and then you want to rotate around them and keep hitting them with different shotguns. So you really want to, like, almost circle them. That's what his W kind of allows you to do. But that's going to put you, like, in really weird positions a lot of times. So, like, hitting the one directly in front of you is nice, but you're going to have to get up and, like, get beside them to hit your side ones on them. I mean, you could throw them behind you to hit the one behind you with your disdain. I don't know. It's weird. Like, it's going to require you to have some very specific positioning, but it can potentially do quite a bit of damage if you can trigger multiple of these in a row, but you're going to have to really work for it. The Q, I don't know the range on it or the effect radius. I assume it's probably not too far. He seems very close range themed. 600, 700, I don't know. It doesn't shred armor anymore. It doesn't lock on anymore. It's just a little thing that does some damage. 70% total AD and applies a slow for 1 second. That, I don't know. To me, that seems extremely anemic. Like, that just seems like that's not really doing much at all. But it's okay. I guess it's another tool. It's got a pretty long cooldown. It does some damage. Urgot's other abilities apply Purge for... Okay, so here you go. Alright, so if you have Purge, then your Q will apply Purge. Gotcha. Okay, so if you have your W, then your Q does lock on. Apply Purge for a few seconds. Okay. Now he shields himself, attacks the nearest enemy for 4 seconds without interrupting his movement, prioritizing champions that are purged. So if you hit him with Q, it sets up your combo to where you automatically keep firing at someone who has been hit with a Q, basically, or an E. So you get this nice shield strength, so you can go up, get in close. 30% of your bonus health. If you have like 1,000 bonus health, I guess. A 3, you get like a 480 shield. I don't know. 1,000 bonus health is weird. His itemization is a little weird. We'll talk about that here in a second. But you get 3.0 attack speeds. That's really fast. That's over the cap. But it does modified damage with only 33% on hit damage. And he cannot critically strike. Attacks deal a minimum of 50 damage against minions. So the modified damage is 36% of your AD. Now 33% of on-hit damage, if you had like a Blade of the Ruined King or something with him, that's the equivalent of having a 1.0 attack speed, so it's 1/3. I don't know. They really don't want you to abuse on hit. But it would stack stuff that stacks on hit. It just wouldn't do damage. So, like a Ginsu's Rage Blade, for example, he doesn't have any AP ratios, but that would stack up, almost instantly when he fires this up. It would stack Fervor, obviously, extremely fast. I don't get what happens if you activate this without a purge. Oh, it's always the nearest enemy, but it prioritizes the person that you purge. Okay, so if there's 3 champions around and you disdain flipped one of them, it would always target the disdain flipped one, even though there's 3 other people there. If you didn't flip anybody, it would just target the closest champion, but it does always target a champion. I don't know the radius. I assume it's close. It's probably within his auto attack range, so it probably has to be within 350. So there might be something out here you could abuse with on hit. I mean, I just said Ginsu you would stack up really fast. That would give you attack speed, AD, and you could trigger your on hit twice, but this is not an on hit. I don't think that's a combo with him. Something like Wit's End would be garbage on him. I'm just trying to think of like on hit stuff. Nashor's too, like Blade of the Ruined King is the thing that really jumps out, but it's only 33% of the on-hit damage. Not really sure. There's probably going to be something people can figure out to make this like into something that's really nice. Oh, Cleaver. Cleaver would actually make sense on him. So you could full stack your Cleaver real quick with this. Yeah, I guess like Cleaver Fervor. Cleaver would fit right into his build too. Because he wants that health, obviously, for the bonus health. So I think Black Cleaver is definitely a must-buy on him. What are people building? I mean, let me just see if anyone's played him yet. This is like the morning of the patch. 7/26. Let's see if anyone's played new Urgot. Okay, 58 minutes ago. Okay, so it looks like people were trying him out. 3 hours ago, I'm a cutie pie tried him. So there have been a few people. So Cleaver does look like... Okay, so the 1 week ago, I assume, was the old one. Okay, so Cleaver does look like mandatory, which I thought. Death's Dance, I was thinking also could be pretty good. Because you are healing some for that, and it does make him tankier. Blade is an option. I really don't like it. It doesn't, you know, you're only doing 1/3 of the damage on it. I think Cleaver's the obvious choice. People are trying him in the jungle, I guess. Swiftness makes sense. You could get close. I get Ghostblade just seems bad. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Frozen Mallets you could stick to people would be alright. I'm not really sure. His itemization is very bizarre. I think Cleaver is obvious. You would want Cleaver. And then just like tanky stuff, maybe like Mallet, so you can stick to people. Mallet, Cleaver, Death's Dance. So I don't think Duskblade would be good on him. Gosh, I really don't know. Someone's gonna come up with something bizarre that's like okay on him. But the bottom line is, you walk around, you attack, you fire off the shotguns, so you can walk in a circle around them, and you keep focusing them. And so the combo is, if somehow you can just run around this person and hit them with all 6 of your shotguns, it would just do massive damage. So if you had I think Cleaver, that would give you the move speed when you hit somebody. So that would increase your move speed by 20%, I believe. And then the Frozen Mallet would hold them still while you walked a circle around them. That's really what you want to do. You want to slow them down with this corrosive charge, and then purge them, keep them slowed, and then just walk all the way around them and fire all of your shotguns. And so it's kind of like you're like Fiora. You're wanting very specific angles on them. So you purge and you run around them, fire all your shotguns with Frozen Mallet. That's probably the combo, is Cleaver, Frozen Mallet, to give you the move speed and the slow as you attack. And that gives you the extra health and tankiness. So I think that is probably the best thing I can think of right now that you would want on him. And then after that, I'm not really sure. I guess maybe Death's Dance, just to make you tankier. I'm not sure, but I think that it is Cleaver Mallet. It would probably be the first couple of things that would come to my mind. Okay, so that can do pretty good damage. It does fire off your shotguns. Each one of those shots can trigger shotgun. It obviously triggers Cleaver, Fervor, which is good. And it does this modified damage. So it's okay if you can walk a circle around him. So it'd be good against other tanks probably with that percentage damage. He dashes in a direction. I'm not sure how far this dash is. Doing physical damage, knocking them aside, and he flips over somebody and stuns them for 0.75 seconds. So it's like a dash with a singed fling to an extent. And when they jump behind you, obviously you can hit them with a free shotgun blast typically. And that changes your angle up so that you can move around them more. Now, I'm not sure how far he dashes. This might be a decent escape if it's like 500 dash. I don't know how far it is. That's one of his big problems, is he never really had an escape. Okay. Urgot fires a chemdrill towards that impales the enemy champion, doing physical damage, leashing them for 3 seconds and slowing them by a lot. So this would give you a pretty big slow, let you run around, shoot them. If they're below 25% of their maximum health, then you can reactivate, or it automatically reactivates within 3 seconds. And he starts a channel, reeling them in over X seconds. I don't know how far that is. During which time they are untargetable by other effects. The channel can only be interrupted by Urgot's death. Okay, well, I guess that answers my QSS question, because it says suppress. So I was like, can you just like QSS out of this? Quicksilver Sash out of this? But it says no. If the channel, and nobody can interrupt it. So they're untargetable. You can't crowd control Urgot out of it. You can't knock him away. You can't do anything. You can't Janet Tornado him away. You can't do, or ult him away. Nothing, because the tether is global. Okay, so they're straight up dead unless you kill Urgot if they're at 25% health. That might actually be pretty good as tank breaker. I mean, maybe he's better than I think. It's difficult to say because he is so close range. It feels like he's so abusable. He's very gimmicky with his positioning. But being able to kill somebody with 25% of their max health, I mean, like on a 3,200 damage tank, that's like 800 damage. Just think of that as true damage. Just like unavoidable, unmitigatable, like unshieldable, just straight up dead on 120-second cooldown. So that's obviously very good against tanks, but it's pretty good against squishies too. I don't know the target range on it. I assume it's probably not far. Like the rest of his stuff is probably like 600 or something. And if you execute somebody, the surrounding enemies, people around you are terrified for 1.5 seconds. They run away. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's good. The Cleaver, if people figure out a build for him, like Cleaver Mallet, the problem is you still have to run a circle around them, which puts you in a terrible position if a gank comes out to do things to him. And I feel like he's going to get lit up by engaged tanks. We'll see. We'll see. He has a really cute kit. That's a really cool mechanic that just like straight up murders tanks. But I don't know. It's like a Cho'Gath Chomp, but a little more certain. See, I just feel like Cho'Gath is probably better. I mean, Cho'Gath just has more, because Cho'Gath also does like 3%, not, 8% of the target's max health. He applies slows, and he has more CC. It's tankier. I don't know. It's very difficult to evaluate him. We've never seen a champion like that. That's really has that execute and that kind of mechanic on him. So, but I mean, my final verdict is he's going to be viable, but probably not top tier. I spent like 20 minutes talking about Urgot, but people want to know, he's brand new. I'll speed up and talk a little bit faster about the other stuff, but I think he's still pretty immobile. He's, which is a huge problem in a tank meta. If Maokai comes running out of the jungle at you, or Darius pulls you in, or, just anything comes at you with crowd control, it just feels like you're going to die. And he feels very gimmicky, like I said. He has really high damage potential in the best case scenario, so if you lock onto somebody and just like walk a circle around him and hit him with all the shotguns. Maybe Ghost would be very good on him for that reason. So, he might be like a top lane, like Ghost Flash, then you wouldn't have teleport. That would let you, what else would let you reposition quickly? I mean, I guess you could run Righteous Glory or something, but I don't. He really needs AD. I mean, I think it's just the Cleaver gives you the speed and the Frozen Mallet slows him down. Both of those give you AD and health, which is what he wants. I think that's just what you go. Swiftness boots. So I think like Swifties so that you can reposition easier. Swifty, Cleaver, Mallet. And then after that, maybe tank stuff. Maybe like a Thorn Mail or something. I don't know. But he feels like he can do a lot of damage, but he's very gimmicky. He's very situational. Itemization is weird. I think those two are core, and the other items I don't know. Like I said, you can go Death's Dance for more damage. Or you could start going things like, I mean, Dead Man's Plate. You would still slow down some. Let's see. Cleaver does not. Does that stack? You wouldn't want Trinity, I guess. Frozen Fist. Well, slows don't stack. I think that's what you would get. I don't think he can split push, which is a huge liability. I think most top laners need to be able to split push right now. Anonymous Dingo, what? People should only be able to view. I don't know why it's allowing that on there. Anyways, whatever. So his itemization's weird. I think he'll be okay. I don't think after reading it that you can QSS his ult. I just read it. It said the only way to stop it is to kill Urgot. So I don't think that's a question anymore. I think we resolved that one. He kills tanks. He does provide pressure with team fight presence. I don't know. He feels like there's too many conditions that need to be met for him to be really strong. So maybe he's good, but I don't know. I'm really hesitant to put him top tier at all. He might. I mean, I could be wrong about this. It's just very difficult to evaluate this. Like, I think he's viable. I think you can play him. I just don't think he's going to be that great. He's kind of like Kayn. I talked about Kayn last patch just like this. I was like, okay, Kayn can probably be good, but I still think he's going to get outclassed by Rengar on that patch, or by Rengar and Kha'Zix. And I think that's true for the lethality patch. It's brief existence last patch. We'll talk about why it's changing this patch here in a second. But so Kayn was like okay, but he's got a complicated kit, and there just usually are better options. I feel like it's going to be the same thing with Urgot. He's all right, he can definitely win some games, but I feel like there's just going to be better options most of the time. Okay, so let's look at some other stuff. Akali, buff. So that's the verdict. Try him out if you want. Do it in normals, but I don't think he's going to be meta breaking or anything, or OP or anything like that. I think he'll be okay. He'll be kind of like Kane-esque, where he's like, just kind of, you know, middling. I don't think this is going to matter. She takes too much time to fire up. She requires a lot of items, most of which are very expensive, and there's a lot of counterplay to her. Like, Janna just completely wrecks her. Taric will destroy her. Just anybody that can shield or heal and just stop her burst. She has virtually no escapes, very little utility. I just really don't think assassins are where you want to be on this patch, and I think if you do want assassins, I think there are far better ones than Akali, or Diana for that matter. I mean, I think Diana's a little bit better than Akali, but you know, I still would prefer something like a, you know, if you really want an assassin, like a Katarina, or maybe even a Kassadin or something like that. But definitely, if you like Akali, this is good news. I just feel like there's probably better options out there with less counterplay. Okay, Azir. I think this is a really big deal for Azir. And I think the meta is very good for Azir right now. Now, I might be hyping this up too much. This seems pretty large, though. I mean, at level 18, they're giving him quite a bit of extra damage. How much extra is that? That is 25. Yeah, it's about 15% more damage at his top end with his W. Now, I think Azir is going to be very good in this tank kind of meta because he has excellent peel and he has excellent, really top-end sustained damage. And they're really playing to that by making him better at top-end damage. So, I'm not an Azir master. Azir is also extremely hard to play. So, make sure you go and practice him a lot in normals if you want to try to play him in mid. I think he'll be a top 5 if you're really good with him on this patch. Because of the way the meta's shaping up and because of this, this direct buff to him. So, he does get some range. So, he can send his soldiers... He can only spawn them 450 away. He can send them 875. I'm not sure of the max range, like how far away you can be. It's probably something like 1,000, because it says target range 1,000. So he can shift up to 1,000 to reach a soldier. Or 1,100 to reach a soldier. But I'm not sure when they despawn. Like how close he has to be. Soldiers, commands the soldiers to attack it. So I think he can send those. So basically, you spawn a soldier if you've never seen Azir, and then you send it out 875. Then he can walk up to 1,100 away and basically auto-attack people from that far away. Now, it's modified auto-attack damage. The damage on these soldiers is pretty strong, though. It's 60% of your AP plus this base. So, you know, if you get to 200 AP at level 11, I don't know how it scales. It doesn't have the scaling table there. I would assume level 11 would probably be something like 120. They've changed how much it scales several times. So, like 120 plus 120 for 200 AP would be like 240 per sand soldier. So, every time you attack, 240, 240, 240, depending on how fast your attack speed is. So, it's quite a bit of damage, and if multiple soldiers hit, it doesn't do double damage, but it does do 25% more damage. So, it's pretty good, and he passively, as you level this up, I'm pretty sure you level up your W all the way first. He passively gets 60% bonus attack speed, which is very nice, and the recharge time is really low. So, you can, in theory, I believe, have up to... 3 out at once. And it's area of effect damage. So if people are grouped up and they have this little slash for 375, it hits everybody that's close. So in a grouped up team fight, this can hit everybody. And trust me, once he gets like a Gnasher's Tooth and a death cap, he completely starts ripping through people. He does a lot of damage. Now this does pretty good damage and slows them for 1 second. That's the people that they pass through. it does reset your auto attack timer, so you can attack Q to move them to hit somebody and then attack again. If you have the mana to keep doing that and the cooldowns. And you can dash to people, so he's pretty mobile. He can get up in people's face. He can chase people down really easily. He can kind of escape if you save a Sand Soldier and a Q. You can spawn a Sand Soldier, throw it like far away, and then dash to it. It gives you a shield if you hit people when you go in. I don't recommend getting up close and hitting people with him. You do get a shield, but he's really designed to leverage this range. I mean, he can basically hit people at a further range than almost anybody at 1100. So, I think you really need to leverage that and just not use this offensively. Then there's the Emperor Divide, and this is one of the things that I think is going to make him pretty good in this meta. So basically, he throws out all of these soldiers, pushes people back, and then they sit there for 3 seconds, and they knock up anybody, or they just don't let them pass through it for so long. So if you throw this at somebody, if like in the jungle or something, you can completely block ramps. Like Malachi is trying to run in on you with a Righteous Glory. You just knock him back with the Shrima's Divide. There are a lot of useful things. You can, in theory, get behind them with your Shifting Sands, doing a Shrima Shuffle, where you like jump to a soldier and then you shift it with your Q. You kind of can bend yourself around them and then knock someone into your team with an Emperor's Divide. I really don't recommend doing that in most instances. You want to use this as a peel mechanic, especially against these tanks. That's one thing that'll make him really strong. You can push people off of you and then just get them tied up with your soldiers, give your tanks time to go in there and tie them up, and then just gun them down. So I think he's going to be really strong because I think the meta's slowing down. I think with all of these tanks, games are going to drag out a little bit longer. Fights are going to last a really long time, and the longer the fight lasts, the more auto attacks he's going to get in with his minions. So I think that bodes very, very well for Azir. Now, the soldiers do not apply on-hit effects. However, they are considered magic damage, so they do apply spell effects. So Rylai's Crystal Scepter does apply a slow, and that's a very powerful item on him. So that does apply a slow, so that keeps them in your Sand Soldiers longer. And I think it's core on him. You might be able to just get away with going Nashor's Death Cap, but I think most people go Nashor's Rylai's. Now you can also go Liandry's. That would give you spell penetration. And your slow obviously would apply an extra 4%. So that's a pretty good way to shred tanks over time. So Nashor's is always first. Like Nashor's, Rylai, Liandry could be a good combo. Looks like a lot of people are going for that on this new patch. Death Cap's obviously very good. Void Staff is obviously very good because the soldiers do magic damage. So I'm not a huge fan of Rod. I mean, I'm not an expert with this guy, but I think Nashor's is unequivocally, Nashor's Rylai's is definitely what you do. And then a lot of times it's either Void, Rabadon's, or Liandry's. If you're facing tanks, Liandry's might be alright. So, like I said, he is extremely hard to play, but if you play him correctly, I think this is his time to shine. Because he has excellent peel, excellent range to stay back, and he does very strong, persistent damage. So he might have some tough matchups. I'm not really sure. I don't think he's great into assassins, but fortunately, I don't think there are going to be a ton of assassins running around this meta that are going to be successful. So I think if you like Azir, this is a very, very good patch for you. I think he's going to be strong on this patch. I think he could potentially even be a top 5. Okay. Cho'Gath, slap on the wrist, I think. His Vorpal Spikes are going to do less damage, less percentage max health damage, but it still does quite a bit of damage, and his Chomp is still going to do a ton of damage. So the problem with Cho'Gath right now, what makes him borderline overpowered, is you get Gargoyle Stoneplate. If you run into a crowd, you press it, it doubles your health 100%. So if you're a Cho'Gath, you have 3,000 health. It doubles it to 6,000, and then your ultimate scales off of max health. So if you look at... And it's the way that Gargoyle Stoneplate is coded that makes this problematic. So it does true damage to champions, It's 475 at level 11, and 10% of your bonus health. So that max health increase counts as bonus health. So if you have, and so do your normal feast stacks. So your feast stacks, you know, at 120, when you get 6 free feast stacks, that's 720 bonus health. So if your base health is like 1500, and then your total health is, I don't know, 3500, then your bonus HP would be 2000. So you would have 2000 bonus HP, and then the 3500 doubled to another 3500 would give you 7000 total health for 4 seconds when you pop gargoyles, and that would be 5500 bonus health. 10% would be 550. So you'd be dealing, you know, just a casual, like, over 1000 true damage basically on your chomp to people, and that comes not quite one-shotting squishies, but I mean, it'll knock off like half of their health that's not mitigated by armor or, you know, anything like that. So that's what makes him strong, is his abuse of Gargoyle Stoneplate. And Gargoyle Stoneplate itself is obviously really strong because you're basically invulnerable for 4 seconds when you do that. And just the normal, like, 80 armor and 80 magic resist that it gives stacks really well with the health that you have. Those combine, you want health with resistances. You want those roughly in equal proportion if you're a major tank. And since he gets so much health, then having that much resistance is great. He doesn't necessarily need CDR. It's good on him, but he's a champion that's not as reliant on it as others. And so he can rush Gargoyle Stoneplate. So the combo is you go Righteous Glory plus Gargoyle Stoneplate. That lets you run right into the middle of their team, slow them all down, and then you just, while they're slowed, hit them with your stuff, hit them with your Q, W, Vorpal them a couple of times, chomp, dead. I mean, that's going to kill virtually any squishy. And so that's what makes him really abusive. And so knocking a little bit off of his E is not solving the problem. The problem is his feast doing 1000 true damage off of one item, and just all the crowd control that he brings to the table. And it's the fact that he just becomes unkillable. So I don't think that's going to... It definitely hurts him a little bit, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. I still think he's going to be a must-picker ban in 7.15. Okay, so Dr. Mundo gets a very bizarre buff where it increases his magic resistance by 2%. And it can stack 15 times. I mean, who's going to stack that 15 times? Taking magic damage or paying it? I don't know. That's bizarre. They had a bunch of other changes on the PvE, and they just haven't shipped them yet. So I guess they're just going to see how this works first. But, I mean, everybody's good against magic resist. Like, they're trying to position him as, like, this premier anti, like, mage. All tanks are anti-mage right now, especially with the changes to Adaptive Helm. So, I mean, yeah, he might particularly hose something like an Azir or a Cassiopeia a little bit more, but you're giving up so much by not playing Malachi or Sejuani or Cho'Gath or any number of these, like Gragas, even Rammus. Like, any of these other tanks are going to have a lot more utility than Cho'Gath's going to have. So, I mean, he doesn't have any CC. I don't know. He's still got problems. Or then Dr. Mundo's going to have. I think I said Cho'Gath. Then Dr. Mundo's going to have. Just, there are probably a dozen better options for tanks on this patch. So, I don't know. Unless you just really love Mundo, I think there are probably better options. This is pretty big for Ekko. Ekko is already extremely strong. He has an 80% AP ratio on his passive. That should tell you something. Anytime you see that much of a ratio on a passive, that's basically an extra damaging ability. So that's like LeBlanc's Sigil of Malice. I think that's what it is, her passive. It does, maybe that's not her passive, but anyways, her passive deals an extra 80 damage when you proc it. And this does too, so that means he scales insanely hard. So it's like a 0.9 total damage on his Q, which is tremendous. This is a 0.8. Parallel Convergence is 150, a 1.5, and the ultimate is a 1.5. So his ratios are just like absolutely ridiculous. And he gets a massive shield. He's hugely mobile. He can run around. He self-heals himself by a lot. It's just crazy. He's extremely strong right now. I think he's probably the best assassin if you still want to run an assassin. He does very high sustained damage. Also, he runs around. He's very mobile. You know, like I said, he's pretty tanky in his own right. So I'm not exactly sure what he builds. I imagine that like Lichbane would be in there somewhere because, you know, he has such a low cooldown on his phase drive once you level it up, and his time winder. But yeah, his burst is through the roof. So I imagine, I mean, what is it? It's like probably Lichbane and just other like high damage things. Lichbane, yeah, that would give you even more burst with the Proto Belt. Just Lichbane, Proto Belt, Void Staff, probably. So yeah, I think he can do very well. I'm not sure if he'll be a top 5, but I think if you want to play like in a highly mobile assassin, I think he'll be pretty good. I think this change is pretty huge because I'm pretty sure he levels his Q up first. So that means he's not going to start leveling his... he's not going to have multiple points in his E and his mobility until level 8. And so that's going to help him out a lot in early game skirmishes because he's going to have 2 seconds less cooldown. 2, and then 1.5 seconds less cooldown when he levels this up. So I think that makes him a lot stronger. So yeah, about a 15% lower cooldown at level 8, which gives him more opportunities to roam and team fight a little bit better in the mid game. So I think he's probably going to be a top 5. I think he's definitely going to be played in LCS. He already is against Syndra as a counter pick. But I think he'll have other applications as well. So if you still want to play a you know, a high skill cap assassin type of champion, I think Ekko's your pick because he brings so much utility to the table. He has his stun, he's got his heal, he has huge mobility, very high sustained damage, especially on multiple targets. Because I think this phase drive can trigger on multiples, right? At 3 stacks. Ekko's basic damaging abilities apply Z drive to affected enemies for 4 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So everybody that he hits gets a stack up to 3 times. How long does it last? It doesn't say how long it lasts. Oh, 4 seconds. Okay. So yeah, so you can stack this and trigger this on multiple enemies. So yeah, I mean, if you have like 200 AP, that's going to do, you know, at level 11, that's going to do like 200, or that's going to do 100, yeah, 265 damage, bonus damage to the target, in addition to giving him like a massive amount of movement speed, so you can just run around and trigger it on everybody. Yeah, I think he's extremely strong. I think he's definitely a top 5 on this patch, and that buff helps him out a lot with his early game. So it takes him from 11 seconds to 9 seconds for a while, and that really lets him level up his Q without losing much mobility early on. So yeah, I think he's another one like Azir that's extremely hard to play correctly. Not quite as hard as Azir, but he's really hard to play. I think this patch, like, the mid laners are all going to be very high skill cap, the best mid laners, and you're really going to be rewarded for playing them a lot of the time. I think that's going to be a theme, is that sort of these like mindless AP mids that just do insane burst damage aren't really going to be the name of the game. It's going to be champions that can position really well and navigate fights very well to work around tanks that are constantly trying to dive them and flank them. I think that's going to be the name of the game. So it's going to be a game of finesse rather than like roll your hand across the keyboard and blow people up. Although he can kind of do that to an extent too. So I think it's going to be really exciting to watch for the LCS. I mean, they're setting this up for Worlds, so I think they have mid in a really good spot right now in terms of that. So we're going to see a lot of flashy stuff, I think, in mid lane. We're going to see some Echoes, we're going to see some Azirs, some Orianas. We're going to be watching some exciting stuff, so that's a good thing. Okay. Like, you don't want to watch a Worlds where it's just like everyone plays Galio middle or like Karma middle. Like, that's okay. No one wants to watch that. We want the finesse. We want the positioning. We want the outplays. And I think that's what they're setting up for this mid. So I think they're doing a great job with the mid lane in terms of setting that up. Okay. Elise got a nerf. Why? I don't get it.
Got a nerf?
She got a nerf, dear.
She got a nerf.
I don't get it. Rory doesn't get it. Why'd she get nerfed, Rory? Come here. Look, Rory is perplexed. Rory, why did Elise get a nerf? She's
shrugging.
She's agape. Her
I
mouth
don't
is
know.
open. She has no clue what's going on right now. Why did they nerf Elise? She has no idea. Okay. She's shocked.
We're going for a walk.
Okay. Have fun.
Bye.
But yeah, I don't get it either. I don't get it, Rory. I don't know why I don't know why they nerfed her. I mean, yeah, I could understand this 3 patches ago when she was a terror, when it was all about early game junglers and, you know, she was just running circles around people, especially in the pro scene after they nerfed Lee Sin and all of the lethality junglers. But now, like, who cares? I mean, she's an okay pick, but she gets overshadowed big time by Maokai, Cho'Gath, even early game by, like, Jarvan. Lee Sin is still pretty competitive with her. There are just so many things that are better than Elise right now in the jungle, I think, that especially in solo queue. So I really don't get like what's up with that, but whatever, that just makes the tank stronger because now there's not anyone really to contest them early on. Okay, Ezreal Q doesn't matter. I mean, Ezreal's problem is not that he doesn't have enough cooldown early on in the game. It doesn't lower it late game. What they need to do is give it a higher ratio, like give him more scaling for late game. Right now, he just does not do damage. And that's the problem. Unless he's really, really far ahead, he just doesn't do damage. Like, why would you ever play Ezreal over someone like Tristana right now? You know, Tristana is extremely safe. And, you know, she's about as safe as Ezreal is. And she just does way more damage than he does. So he's a victim of itemization. Like, he's just not good with crit. He's not good with lethality. He doesn't have very good scaling. He can't punish people early. He's just kind of a safe champion, and that's it. And I don't really think that that's enough right now. Yeah, I mean, it does help him in scaling, but think about when you're going to get your tier. Like, they're marketing this as it helps him with his scaling, with tier. When are you going to get your tier, right? You're probably going to go back and get your tier at, like, level 5. You might be able to do it at level 3 if you really push hard, but I think it's probably going to be level 5, which means your Mystic Shot's going to be level 3. So what, you're telling me you're going to save an extra half a second on your Q spam. That's not going to matter, Riot. Come on, man. Either lower it like all the way across the board and make this like 2.5 seconds so you can like machine gun these out late game. That might help. Or, you know, just do something else. This is not going to help. It's not going to be relevant. Okay. Gangplank, this one's difficult to evaluate. That's a lot of extra early game damage on his passive. That's 15. That's 50% more damage. Do I have a Gangplank tab? Yes. Okay. So next basic attack burns the target. That also applies to his Q. That does apply on hit effects, and it can critically strike. True damage over that and gives him movement speed. But it has a 15-second cooldown. I mean, so you're dealing an extra 15 damage to him every 15 seconds. Oh, wait. Trial by Fire cannot be applied with Parlay. Okay, so you can't even Q him to trigger this. Destroying Powder Keg readies Trial by Fire, instantly readies it, and grants bonus movement speed. Okay, so you can Trial by Fire, hit him with a keg, and then attack him. I don't know. I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, it's going to help his early trading patterns, but I don't think it fixes a lot of Gangplank's problems. He's very hard to play, and I think he does have a lot of utility, but he's just extremely hard to play in solo queue, and I just don't think the payoff's enough. He just doesn't have enough raw power. I don't know. If you're a Gangplank specialist, it's going to be really good for you. So he has a lot of utilities, really hard to play. Barrel management, positioning is really tough. I mean, he might be a decent option against scaling tanks. So, you know, if you're up against like a Maokai top lane, or a Galio or a Cho'Gath or something like that, you know, he might be an option if you're just going to have a farm off. games are going to slow down enough for him to be a little bit more effective, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening, not in pro play, probably not that much in solo queue. I don't think it's going to change that much. However, if you're a one-trick Gangplank or you're good with Gangplank, this might matter a little bit more. So he's still a pretty good one-trick champion if you get very good with him. If you're like, you know, Nisi or Tobias Fate or something like that, you know, you're going to probably like this. But I think for most other people, it's just not going to matter that much. I could be wrong about that, but I don't know. I think there's just too much room for error. It's kind of like an Urgot thing where he can be good in the right situation. The payoff is higher for Gangplank than it is for Urgot, but I think the conditions for him to be good are not quite as bad as... Maybe that's not a good analogy. I don't know. He just requires too much perfection in play and a lot of items, and I just think that that's not usually a viable strategy for solo queue. Gragas, pretty decent nerf. I still think he's pretty good. 20 more seconds on his ult is kind of a big deal. The attack speed, I don't think is really going to matter. I mean, he's not really using auto attacks that much in the jungle to clear. It's a lot of his barrel and belly flop. So I mean, I guess it's an okay nerf to his clear. They're all about like hitting people on their clear, but they're like not touching Maokai, who clears really quickly. They're not touching a lot of these other champions that clear really quickly. They want to give people more time to farm it out, I guess. I don't know. But that extra 20 seconds is kind of a big deal. We'll see. I mean, that hurts his early game, like gank patterns, but he's still going to be strong late game. You know, he still has great engage. He's still awesome scaling with Cinderhawk, Thornmail, Spirit Visage, that little combo. So I still think he'll be good. I think that Maokai and Cho'Gath are going to be decidedly better than he is right now in the jungle, but I think he's going to be like a third pick option. I still think he's top tier, but I think he's going to be like a third pick option. I mean, Sejuani and Zac are still good too. There are a lot of good junglers, so I think he's a top 5. But I don't know. He definitely falls a little bit. I think he's definitely below Cho and Maokai, and he's in the conversation with Zac and Sejuani, depending on situations. Irelia doesn't matter. I mean, she still has huge problems. Like, she just does not do enough damage to keep up with other fighters or tanks. She's just going to get demolished. She does have some true damage in her kit, but it's so low, it's just not modernized at all. Like, she gets these little, like, dinky numbers that don't really scale at all. And, I mean, she's very clearly, like, a Season 1 champion that just has not been updated in 7 years. Very much. Like, they tweaked her numbers a little bit, but she's just not updated. Like, her basic attacks heal her for, like, 13. No scaling. No AD ratio. She does bonus true damage. 75 on an auto attack. When it's maxed out. When her hit and style is active. That's only for 6 seconds. On a 15-second cooldown. So that's her payoff. That's her payoff. For 6 seconds... she does up to 75 additional true damage on a 15-second cooldown. Like, that's pathetic compared to a lot of other champions out there, I think. I mean, it's all right. I guess if you get a lot of attack speed with her, it's okay. But I just think that she just gets murdered by every other major top lane fighter. I think Fiora, Kled, Jax, I mean, even Camille, all these people are going to just crush her, I think. And I just don't think she's going to have the power to take out the tanks. Doesn't have enough sustain or sustain damage. Equilibrium Strike is okay. Disable. I don't know. She's okay. I just think she's got a really outdated kit. And I think that it's very easy to kite her. She doesn't have an escape. She's very easy to camp. I just think they need to modernize her a little bit. Okay, Jinx. I think this is a pretty big buff to Jinx. They're calling this a bug fix on Switcheroo, but apparently her auto attacks were not giving the plus 10 damage. Her Hurricane Bolts were not applying Fishbone's bonus attack damage to their primary targets. So In other words, the Hurricane was doing about 10% less damage than it should. So this is a 10% increase to her overall DPS once she has Hurricane. Pretty much. Now, not on the primary shot, but on the secondary bolts it is. So that's pretty huge, because how it works, if you don't know this, you still want to get Hurricane on Jinx, because when you fire a rocket, the Hurricane bolts are also mini rockets. They explode and do area of effect damage also, and all of that can crit, and it's supposed to have that 10% bonus damage. So this is pretty big, because it not only affects the single target of the Hurricane bolts, but if they splash and hit multiple targets, it gets 10% on the multiple targets as well. So that's a really, really big buff to her team fighting, I think. And once you start adding that in, 10% may not sound like much. Once you start adding that in with Critical Strike and the fact that it does area of effect damage, it splashes on everybody in team fights, it's a pretty big deal. So I think that's a huge, huge buff for her once she gets her Infinity Edge and Hurricane for team fights. And Zap being on less of a 2 second less cooldown, it's okay. I mean, that'll help her out in the mid game. It'll help her kite people a little bit more. You know, play around her chompers. It can help you chase people. It's pretty good. I mean, it's a buff. I don't think she's going to be a top 5, either in competitive or solo queue. But she is a champion that still can be really powerful if you have a good peeling support. So if you have like a Janna on your team, I think she can be phenomenal. But I think that there probably are better options. But she can still be a really dangerous and powerful support. Like, her big problem is, we'll talk about this here in a second, she just really doesn't have an answer if, you know, Malachi runs at her with Righteous Glory. I mean, I guess she can try to throw chompers and pray, but for the most part, he's going to get on her, he's going to lock her up, and she's going to die. So she doesn't have a lot of mobility or ways to protect herself outside getting resets when she kills people. So I still think that's going to be the same. So if you don't have a peeler support, you're pretty much screwed in this meta as Jinx. This seems good, but it's really inconsequential, I think. So the Assassin just does not have enough utility. You don't have a stun when you pick Assassin for him. You don't have any sort of regeneration or protection when you pick Assassin for him. So I think that the Assassin, the blue form of Kayle, is just garbage. And I think that it still is going to continue to be garbage. So you do get a little bit of extra bonus attack damage, but it doesn't affect Darken form. So it doesn't affect when he turns into Rost, the red form. So it doesn't matter. I mean, this is okay. You get extra Night Stalker buff when you go inside somebody and then pop back out. But it doesn't matter. He's okay. He's middling. Like, Rost is okay at breaking tanks. He does extra percentage damage. He does heal himself. So he's an okay tank breaker, like, fighter in the jungle. He's one of the better tank breaking fighters, but he still, you know, has a hard time against mega tanks. So he's all right. He's all right. I think there are still better options in the jungle, but he's okay. You're still going to want to play Rost, the red form, and this doesn't affect red form, so he's all right. Lissandra, still a garbage champion. I would not play her. I don't know, like, just the design is very, very poor for Lissandra. I mean, if you love Lissandra, I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. Her mana costs are obscene. Like, they're laughable. I understand she has a passive that gives her, you know, free spells, but it's not worth it. Like, are you just going to sit around and wait, you know, however long, 18 seconds early so you get a free spell? That's not worth it, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but just reduced by 1 second every time she applies a crowd control to an enemy, excluding crowd control from items. I don't know. I think it's just really poor design. Like, why? Just give her something else that, like, adds extra crowd control and make her spells cost a reasonable cost. Like, it feels like this is one of those passives that penalizes you just so it feels like you're getting a reward, if that makes sense. So it's one of those things where it's like, you feel good because you're doing it. You're like, yeah, I'm getting a free spell. But it's something that you should have had all along. You should have just had lower mana costs. So it's not really giving you anything. It's like penalizing you and making it sound like it's a reward. It's like someone like coming up and stealing $20 from you so that, you know, down the line they can, you know, mysteriously gift you $20 somehow. And you're like, sweet, I earned $20. But it's like, wait a minute, they stole my $20 first. You know, that kind of thing. Because, I mean, look at these numbers. 85 mana at level 1. 85 mana to deal 70 damage. That is pathetic. That's not even a 1-to-1 payout. Like, there are some support abilities that are, like, literally a 5-to-1 payout. Like, even Maokai, I believe, if we look at something like Maokai, look at this Q. 50 mana at level 1 and at every level. 250 damage on a 5-second cooldown. Now, yes, it's not really as ranged as hers is, but it's 600. It's close. This is on a tank. This is a tank. Okay? He's not supposed to do damage. Now, Maokai is very broken right now. Okay? But I'm just comparing just how pathetic this is. This is 85 mana. It caps out at 190. This is 250 for 50 mana. Like, they both do 70, but this costs, like, so much less. And it knocks people back. Like, it has some extra utility to it. They both have about the same cooldown, 5 versus 3. I mean, this has a little bit less cooldown on it. This obviously has more range. Like, they're different. This also adds a slow to it. But it's just, it's not worth it. Like, that's so much mana for very little payoff. This gets up to 100 mana for Glacial Path. Like, it's nice to be able to lock people down. I just think Malzahar just does what she's trying to do much better than she does. I'm pretty sure his ult has at least 600 range. I'm not sure exactly, but he just has better wave clear, better cost, better lockdown ultimate, better protection for himself, better sustained damage with Voidlings. I don't think Malzahar is even a top 5 right now, but I think he's just a better version of Lissandra. I mean, Rito, please. Just rework her passive and make her mana cost reasonable. Like, extra base attack damage, extra mana per level. Yeah, okay, well, they realize that's a problem. It's 10 mana is not going to fix this problem. I mean, that's like every 8 levels you can cast one more spell at the end. A couple of extra spells before running empty. Yeah, when you're level 17, you can cast 2 extra spells with this. Like, come on, Riot, give me a break. Like, I don't know, whatever. She's not as strong. Just don't pick her. Just, if you want something like that, just go Malzahar. Lux, I don't think this is going to matter that much. So you can get double the shield now, which is pretty good if you hit this across the whole team. That might be relevant for support Lux to get, like, that could be huge shields. Potentially. Let me see. It's probably a really long cooldown on that, right? Pretty long. Okay, so I mean, you can get up to a 220 shield with a 0.4 ratio. If you hit both people, it's a skill shot, so you can miss on a 10-second cooldown. I mean, you can hit multiple people, though. It's cute. I don't think it's going to matter as much. She's fun. She's interesting. I just think there are going to be better choices in most lanes. I know the people on the channel like her. She's alright. It's definitely a buff. You can throw more Qs, you shield more, but I just think in general, she's just still too skill shot dependent, and she has very low mobility or escapes, and she's just a sitting duck in a engaged tank meta. Nami. I do think Nami's going to be very, very good on this patch, but I don't think it's because of the Q. The Q does help her. It's the last thing that you level up, typically, but this will let you throw more bubbles for more crowd control. But more importantly, it's her E that makes her strong. And her W. I mean, so she can babysit in lane. She can babysit Sivir and Vayne. And those are the 2 big players right now, I think, on this patch. Callista in pro play. And she'll be pretty good in solo queue. But I think there's going to be a lot of Sivir and Vayne. And She's very good with both of those. So she allows her E allows people to kite and chase really well, which is what a lot of this meta is going to be about. So she's particularly good with Vayne, because her E applies a slow on the next 3 auto attacks, and obviously her bubble can crowd control. Her ultimate knocks people back and slows them down. She has a heal that bounces around with her W. She can babysit early. She has pretty good trading early. So I think Nami's going to be in a really good spot. She obviously scales really well with the plus healing items, plus shielding items. So, excuse me. So I think that I think she's going to be really good this patch. Not necessarily because of the Q, but because of meta shifts and the fact that I think Vayne and Sivir are going to be really good. Moving on time. 105. Okay, we're doing all right. Okay, this is a huge one. This is there are 2 meta-defining changes on this patch. One of them is Nasus, and one of them is Sivir. Okay, so Nasus is a huge one. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about him. God, my hair looks insane. It's like sweaty and sticking up. I had someone ask me like legit if I had a wig before, because my hair just looks so wacky sometimes. And no, I do not. My hair is just wacky. Gotta have that cat blanket on in case she jumps on me, so I shouldn't tear up my legs or like scratch my pants to death. Nasus is supposed to be... I didn't read what they said about this. How are they going to justify this? Let me see, because this is just like insane buff. Supposed to be the late game scaling juggernaut if he plays the laning phase right and gets stacked up. In practice, he ends up mostly hitting high armor frontliners and losing a lot of his expected efficiency as a result. Struggling to reach priority targets who kite well is an expected weakness of Nasus, but he should feel impactful when he's stuck hitting beefier frontliners. Well, he's certainly going to be impactful. So this is insane. I think Nasus might be the most overpowered champion on this patch. I mean, that might be a little hyperbolic, putting him up there with, like, you know, the likes of, like, Maokai and Sivir, but I think that he's certainly going to be up there. So they changed the flat armor reduction to percentage armor reduction. Percentage armor reduction. This is huge. Now, he's not going to be doing... Like, this would be really good for zeroing out squishy targets. But as this said, you're not usually hitting squishier targets. You're hitting tanks. So 35% reduction. That is massive on huge tanks. That's going to shred, you know, a lot of these tanks are going to have at least 100 armor. Notice here, it says percent of total armor, not bonus armor. So it's important to keep in mind that Last Whisper is bonus armor, and they nerfed Last Whisper specifically because total armor was too strong against tanks. Nerfing or shredding total armor was too strong. That's how they justified nerfing Last Whisper, because they thought it was going to be too good of an item against tanks. And so they're giving the same effect to Nasus. If it was total armor, that might be a little more appropriate, but... Or if it was bonus armor, it would be more appropriate, but total armor is crazy. So if you look at... Do I still have... Well, we've got Cho'Gath up here. He has pretty good scaling, I think. That's pretty good. It's not telling me his total. It's telling me his plus here. 3.5 per level, so that's going to be what, like 56 or something. I mean, he's going to be up to like 90 to 100 armor. But, you know, a lot of these tanks are going to get at least 200 armor. Right? At least, if not 250 or 300 on some of these things. Especially the ones that run Gargoyle Stoneplate. So, 200 armor. If you're shredding that, then, you know, instead of just shredding 40... like it used to, it's going to be shredding 70. 70 armor is 1,400 gold worth of stats. This is 20 gold per point of armor. So against a 200 armor target, you're basically just deleting 1,400 gold off of them. That's massive. And it's area of effect. So if there are multiple tanks like on you, let's say if there's a Cho'Gath and a Maokai running at your AD carry, and you walk up and start slowing them, you start queuing them with Frozen Fist, it's going to take off armor from both of them. It's a pretty good little radius, too, if we look at Nasus here. We'll talk about the rest of his kit in a second. Well, 400's not massive, but you can have multiple targets in there. Also, it's everybody on your team. It's not just your attacks ignore 35% of the target's armor, like a Last Whisper. It is your attacks remove 35% armor. So that means you do extra damage, and your AD carry does extra damage. And your Kayn jungle does extra AD damage. And your Zed does extra, like, damage on his abilities. Like, it's so much. Especially if you have, you know, 2 or 3 ADs on your team. It's just insane. Armor shredding. So that's like through the roof powerful, in addition to everything else that he has going on. And oh, by the way, just casually, Siphoning Strikes cooldown, we're reducing it by 50 when he has his ult on. What? Like, that's so insane. Are you kidding me? So your entire team benefits from this armor shred, and you get to use twice as many Qs in a fight when they hit like a truck. So let's say that you have 25% CDR. That's going to end up on a level 9 Nasus Q, which is about appropriate. So you get like, I mean, you could go to 20% CDR if you want. It'd be like 1.6 or 1.7 seconds. That's assuming you have like 1 CDR item. Like you complete your Frozen Fist or something like that. And let's say you have 200 stacks. I don't think 200 stacks is that much. I feel like that's very conservative by like, you get to level 9 at what, like maybe 12 minutes into a game or something. I'm not sure about the exact timing on these things, but I feel like 200 stacks is conservative. So at 200 stacks, you would do 300 damage on your Q, plus 83 from your base attack damage, and 83 from Sheen, because you're going to have Sheen. That's a very easy item to get. Plus 30 damage from 1 tick against a 1,000 health target. It would be 60 damage against a 2,000 health target from your ult. Gives you a grand total of 506 damage every 1.5 seconds in a fight. At level 9. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, you're going to kill people in like 4.5 seconds or something. You're just going to put a wither on their AD carry and then just boom, 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 dead. Like, it's so much. It's so much damage. Oh, by the way, this doesn't apply to a tower, the R tick, but everything else does. So if you just want to knock out a tower, you know, just pop your ult, get 50% cooldown on your Q. This doesn't even include auto attack resets. If you include an auto attack reset, because Q resets auto attack, it's an extra 83. So it's just attack Q, attack, attack Q, attack Q, attack, attack Q. Like, it's so much damage. So, you know, you're still going to be doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 damage. Towers have 3,000 health every 1.5 seconds. So let's say that someone teleports bot, tries to make a play, leaves you alone for a second. Just pop your ult, walk up there, you know, just Q, 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 Q. You could probably knock out a tower in like literally 10 seconds, like a full health tower. Let's see, you'd be able to hit it, what, 1.5, 6 hits. Yeah, literally, like 6 hits. You would have it dead. And 6 hits would be 9 seconds. That'd do 3,000 damage to a tower. Now, towers do have armor, so you wouldn't get as much. But you see what I'm saying? Like, you're going to take towers 50% faster with Nasus. He already takes them that fast after the CDR. It's just crazy amount of damage. Insane amount of damage. And you're going to have a permanent slow with Iceborne. Because the slow field lasts... Let me see here. I think the slow field lasts 1.5 seconds, right? Lasts for 2 seconds. And with your ult on and, you know, the 20% CDR, you're going to have it up. So you're just going to perma-slow people by 30% for the entire time, basically. So they're not going to run away. They're already going to be withered also. And you can apply this to multiple people. So just boom, slow field, boom, slow field, boom, slow field. And the slow field affects multiple people too. You're just going to create this entire, like, cloud of slow around you that the enemy team's just not going to be able to get through you to get to the people that they want to get to. They're just going to be stuck in your armor shred. Don't forget, when they're slowed, it makes it really hard to walk out of your spirit fire while the AD carry shreds the tanks. So Malachi comes in, you're just like, okay, boom. Slow him, slow him, slow him. He tries to engage on your Vayne. Vayne, like, condemns him, rolls backward. You just sit on him and just keep slowing him in your Spirit Fire, and Vayne just guns him down. So I think that those changes are just completely bonkers on him. Where is he? This is in addition. They've been creeping up, changing him for a while now, and the meta's shifted around a lot too. So they nerfed Fiora out of contention. She was very good against him because she did true damage to him. They nerfed Camille, who does true damage. They've buffed all kinds of tank items. They've buffed Thornmail. They buffed Spirit Visage, which is very good on him. Gives him extra lifesteal. Thornmail, obviously very good on him. Like, how do you kill this guy? So he's going to have Spirit Visage. He's going to be lifestealing for 20%. He's going to get an extra 1/3 off of that. So he's going to be lifestealing for... I can't do the math offhand. So let's say it's 15. He does an extra 1/3. So he's going to be lifestealing for 20%, starting at level 7. And he's doing, what, around 500 damage. So he's going to be, every time he hits somebody with a Q, he's going to be healing for 100 health. In addition to his normal auto attacks, are going to be healing for another 20. I mean, the guy is just going to be healing for just an insane amount. Because don't forget, the siphoning strikes, you know, also account as lifesteal. And the more he's siphoning striking, the more he's lifestealing. And he's going to be doing even more damage because he's shredding people, which means he's going to be lifestealing more. And by the way, he gets all this extra bonus health off of this. And he gets a bunch of bonus resistances. Don't forget, they changed that at the beginning of this season. Or near the end of last season. I can't remember. But yeah, so now it's just like on the house. He gets a free 35 resistances to start at level 11. And he gets 2 per second. So he gets another 30 at the end of 15 seconds. So just on the house, he gets an extra 65 resists. And just so happens to drain, you know, 4% max health per second to everybody in an area of effect around him while this is going on. I mean, it's just nutty. Oh, and by the way, he can wither people, which cripples them. So if you don't know how this works, I'll explain really quick how attack speed works and why this is ridiculous. They nerfed the range on it. I think it used to be 800 range, but you know who doesn't have a lot of range? Sivir, Vayne. They don't have a lot of range, and they're going to be very powerful on this patch, and they're very auto-attack based champions. So when you wither them, it's going to be really bad for them. So it cripples them for half of that. So 17.5% cripple, and then it goes up every second for an additional 1.5. So cripple is even worse than attack speed bonuses because the cripple applies after the bonus. They do not cancel each other out. So let me just give you a hypothetical scenario here and tell you how this works. Let's say that you have a 1.0 attack speed. So you have like the equivalent to like 100 attack speed. 1.0 attack speed. You have an extra 50% attack speed bonus. Okay, so you've got some kind of ability that gives you 50%, or you've got some kind of items that give you 50%, whatever. You have a 50% attack speed. Someone applies a 50% cripple to you. It adds the attack speed first, so you have a 1.5 attack speed, and then it cripples to take it down to a 0.75 attack speed. So it does not equal out 50 bonus plus 50 or minus 50 cripple does not equal 1.0 attack speed again. It takes it down to a 0.75. So crippling attack speed is even more dangerous than adding attack speed. So if you're that Tristana and you're getting that 90% attack speed, you know, then the cripple is going to knock off a lot of it. A lot of it, because it also hits your base. So it's really, really good that you can cripple for a lot. And you slow somebody for 5 seconds. This is not a decaying slow. In fact, it gets worse over the duration. You slow for much, much more. If you get this leveled up all the way, that is a 95% slow. You're not moving. It's almost like you're stunned for 5 seconds. Like you can still auto attack, but now you're going to be crippled for 47%. Don't forget, hey, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Don't forget that Thornmail now also applies a cripple because it's got cold steel. I think it's is it 15%? Good old Thornmail, everybody's favorite, right? Yeah, 15% cripple. Now, it does not stack additively, so that 47 plus 45 does not stack. I'm not going to do all the math on it, so you don't get the full benefit out of stacking cripples. Cripple is a very rare stat for a reason, because it's overpowered as heck. And that's why, you know, Frozen Heart used to be a 20% cripple, and they took it down to 15%. There are a lot of things where they have taken cripple down because AD carries complained about it a lot. Now, Nasus has kind of gotten through because he's been irrelevant, especially in the pro scene forever. Like, there's never been a Nasus meta in the pro scene. I think he's probably been played like 10 times or less. Maybe more than that. I don't know. Out of thousands and thousands of League of Legends games that have been played professionally, he's probably been played in less than 1% of games. So he's never been relevant, so they just never really messed with his cripple that much. They did nerf the range on it, but not the cripple effect itself. Where's my Nasus tab? There he is. But anyways, all that you need to know, you throw this on a Vayne or a Sivir, and it's going to wreck them. They're going to have a bad day. Also, people, it's really hard to escape lane. So let's say you have a Maokai gank coming in, your Nasus, just throw a Wither on somebody, and they're dead. Like, they're not going to get away. Because what are you going to do? Flash it? It lasts for 5 seconds. So a maximum slow is 47% on a level 1 slow. So yeah, you cannot escape him. If someone rolls up with a gank, even if you flash, you're not going to get away probably. It's really, really dangerous. So putting all this together, you have somebody who has massive lifesteal, who has very huge scaling for late game, that does very high sustained damage, especially when his ult is on. Someone who completely invalidates an AD carry that doesn't have a QSS to get rid of this, or doesn't have a support that has Mikhail's to get rid of this. I mean, Vayne's just not going to do anything for 5 seconds hardly, and Sivir is going to have a really hard time with this too. Makes it really hard for anything that relies on mobility. Kassadin's trying to run away? I don't think so. Not when he's crippled. You're trying to get away from that Maokai who's running at you with whatever, the glory. You're not getting away from that. So, very, very powerful crowd control that also has utility. Spirit Fire shredding everybody's armor so that everyone on your team basically does a bonus 35% damage if they deal physical damage on both their attacks and their abilities. Lasts for 5 seconds. Oh, and by the way, that just does a casual when you level it up. Just a casual 430 damage. That also has an AP ratio, in case you want to build AP, which you shouldn't. Don't build AP Nasus, but you know, it's a casual 430 base magic damage in addition to everyone on your team, including you, doing 35% more physical damage in an area of effect, just for good measure. That also wave clears, by the way. You can just drop this down. It'll just like insta-clear a wave once you level this up. And then just throw in a nice casual ult that gives massive health, massive resistances, and massive like shred. And gives you longer attack range. I mean, it's just, like, nutty. Like, he's so good now. He's so good. I mean, I might be overhyping this, but I really don't think so. I mean, how do you beat him? With these items, like, once he gets Thornmail, Spirit Visage, Iceborne Gauntlet, how do you beat him? I mean, you could even throw a Righteous Glory on him somewhere in there if you want to. Like, I don't understand. I literally don't understand what beats him. Like, you're going to have to send 3 or 4 people to kill this guy. And even then, it's going to be tough. Because you're not getting away from him. I mean, you're not fighting him one-on-one. Forget that. Because he already crushes squishies. I mean, like, the best hope to beat him is, like, maybe Jax that has a QSS to get rid of the cripple. Because Jax can run in, start attacking him, and he can... when he activates his counter strike, then it'll make him immune to Nasus's Qs for 2 seconds. So he can get in there, get 2 free seconds of attacks, and just pray that he kills him that fast. Because once that wears off, I guess he gets those 2 free attacks in. After that's done, he stuns him. After the stun is done, and he can QSS Nasus's Wither. I just don't know. I still don't think it's enough. I mean, Nasus is just going to drop a Spirit Fire on him, pop his ult, and then just heal it back up with Siphoning Strikes. And Jax is going to be hurting himself on Thornmail. He's going to be getting crippled the whole time by Wither. I mean, I guess he can cleanse the Wither, but he can't cleanse the Cold Steel. Jax is probably the best hope. I mean, maybe Fiora, if Fiora cleanses the... it has to be somebody that runs QSS and cleanses Wither. It's just not happening if you don't do that. So maybe Fiora that cleanses the Wither with QSS and can like get in there and tear him up early. Like, he just creates so many matchup problems because you can't burst him because he has huge resistances, and Fury of the Sand is up there, and he's going to just be building full tank and do massive damage because of his Q. So you're not bursting him. You're not going to out-sustain damage him because he stops your sustained damage with Wither. If you run like, maybe you could run like a Cassiopeia and just try to kite him and run him around, but then he's just going to get Adaptive Helm. He's going to run you down, probably, with Wither, especially if he runs Righteous Glory. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is something like you put an Azir or a Cassiopeia top and just hope that he doesn't know what Adaptive Helm is. I don't know. I think he's going to have to be, like, permabanned this patch. Like, legit. I don't say that about a lot of champions if you've watched my patch notes for a while, but this is probably, I don't throw this word around a lot. I think this is the most overpowered, like, broken thing that I've seen this season. No joke. I mean, I think this might even be worse than Kassadin was for a little bit. I mean, Kassadin's been ridiculous at points during this semester, or during this season. Things like Varus have been ridiculous. People think Malachi is ridiculous. They think that Zach's ridiculous right now. Those are both good. But this is ridiculous. This is taking it to another level. I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that he is really, really, really overpowered. I think he's the most overpowered thing that I've seen this season at this point in time. I mean, maybe I'm forgetting about something. Maybe there's a hard counter that I just can't think of. But I think he's even going to see, I bet he even sees pro play for like the first time ever in League of Legends. I think he will be a standard. People will ban Nasus in pro play. Mark it down right now. They're going to ban him in pro play for like a first. It's never in League of Legends history has Nasus been banned. I think that we're making history right now. That's how ridiculous I think this is. I think he's so ridiculous, in fact, you might be able to run him as support. Like, Nasus support. I'm not saying that is as ridiculous as top lane Nasus. I mean, you might even be able to run Nasus in the jungle. I'd have to think about that. Spiritfire has great wave clear. I think he's primarily a top laner, though. You might be able to run him in the jungle. Maybe. I mean, I could see it, but I think he's going to be a top laner. But anyways, you might be able to run him as support. You can get Eye of the Equinox. That will allow you to get stacks on your Q. But you don't even really need Q. Like, that's just kind of extra stuff on top. Like, he has so much utility already. Just max Spiritfire. And then max... you could start getting Q in the mid game if you want. I mean, the thing about support Nasus is you're not going to be able to farm on cooldown with your Q anyways, because you have to wait on Relic Shield stacks because you don't want to take CS away from your AD carry. But the E is your main attraction. You're going to have really fast wave clear, especially with someone like Sivir. Just drop a Spiritfire, Sivir Qs, and that's instantly the wave's gone. Now, that is very mana intense, though. I mean, you could, in theory, max Wither. Like, you could go Spiritfire, like, max Spiritfire and then Wither, and just not even... I mean, you could kind of stack your Q up, but you don't have to level it up until much later in the game. I think getting a few points in Wither also could just shut people down. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced that it would be super viable bot lane. There's probably better options, but he's so ridiculous right now that you might even be able to run him as support. We'll see. But yeah, just he is a beast on this patch. I mean, maybe I'm going a little bit over the top with him, but he's really, really good. He's really, really good right now. All right, so Nautilus, I think it's a pretty good buff for Nautilus. We might see him a little bit more. How are we looking on time? We're getting crazy on the time. Starting to get up there a little bit. All right, we'll try to pick it up. Dredgeline doesn't matter. Depth charge is good. This will help him have much more impact in the mid game. Like, I never understood why he had 140-second cooldown when things like a Malzahar ult was 120, or a lot of other supports had a 120-second ult. So this will let him, and that helps him out with Ziggs a lot in the early game. Because he's a really good Ziggs user, because he can obviously hold people in place with his ult, his E, his hook, his autos, all of that stuff. He can hold people in place so that your AD carry can really leverage the Ziggs. But the problem was he had such a long cooldown that it was not as practical to rush Ziggs on him as it might be on other champions. But that's actually going to help him quite a bit. He is pretty good. Obviously, his ult's not great against Sivir, because Sivir can spell shield it. But it is really good against Vayne, because if you get the ult off, and then she tries to go invisible and roll away, it does still home on to her and lock onto her. It'll knock her up while she's invisible, but it does stick on her, and it allows you to stick on Vayne. So that's actually pretty strong. Same with Kalista. You can stick onto Kalista. She's not running from that. So we might actually see more of him, potentially. So with, like, you know, you would go something like Ziggs, Knight's Vow, I think could be a pretty good build on him. And he's guaranteed lockdown crowd control. He doesn't have any percentage damage. He doesn't have any plus healing and shielding, so that's kind of a thing. I don't think he's going to be a tank top lane. I think Nasus will tear him up. I think Maokai will tear him up. But as support, maybe. If you want that lockdown, you don't want to run Rakan. Vayne is very good against Rakan because she can dodge his engage if she's fast enough. Or she can, you know, condemn him backward. It's a bad matchup. So I think Nautilus could be better against Vayne, although I think that Rakan's better against Sivir because Sivir's Spell Shield only blocks the charm portion of Rakan's R, but the knockup will still hit if you do that. So I think that Rakan, with his ult, is a better choice against Sivir, but Nautilus might be really good against Vayne. We'll see. And Kalista. So I think he's better, but I don't think he's top tier, anymore, but I still think that he's still pretty good. Shyvana, I don't think it matters. I mean, no one's going to build AD on Shyvana. Like, most people build Blade the Ruined King and then the on-hit jungle item. She's okay. She's okay. I mean, I guess if you go like Titanic Hydra plus Cinder Hulk or something on her, this might be worth it, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think there are better farm-off junglers and split-pushing junglers, like Master Yi and Udyr, I think are both better if you want that style of jungle. And she's okay. I mean, it's not like she's awful, but I just think there are better choices in this meta. Singed, doesn't matter. They hot nerfed Singed after the first day when I was really like, oh my god, this thing's OP. They changed him a lot. I think they're just better choices. I think Adaptive Helm just completely ruins his day. Like, it's just absolutely crushes him. They're just better engaged tanks, I think. I mean, Righteous Glory is good on him. I just think he has some awful matchups in lane. It's really, really hard to lane with him. Like, you have to proxy farm, and I think a lot of the junglers can run him down in CC and kill him. I just don't think it's a very good meta for Singed. He's okay, but I think there are better choices. Sivir. Oh my god, Sivir. This is the other one that is overpowered. And this doesn't look like much, perhaps, to the untrained eye, but you have to keep the meta in mind. If you haven't survived, if you haven't lived through a Sivir meta, you're in for a treat because you're about to see one. 30 damage on your Q. That's more than double damage at level 1. Double damage. They're not giving it plus 10 damage. They're not even giving it plus 20. They're giving it plus 30 damage right out the gates. More oomph. This is not oomph. This is like, boom. Like dynamite blast early game. That is insane. Early game damage from Sivir. They nerfed her Boomerang Blade, I think, a lot back in the day because it was ridiculous early on. And now they're buffing it again. So, let's say you have 75 AD to start. If you hit someone with both parts of your Boomerang Blade at level 1, this is not even including an auto attack. This is literally just having 70 AD, which is just standard 80 runes plus a Doran's Blade. No auto attacks. You just straight up hit them with a Q. 200 damage. Level 1. 200 damage. No autos. You throw an auto, obviously it's 275 if you have 75 AD. I mean, what? What? Like, that is disgusting. If you look at her Q scaling now, maximum physical damage, 1.3 ratio with 101 base. That's, I mean, that's absolutely disgusting. Like, that's so much damage. It's ridiculous. Now, if it hits extra, minions, it can only be damaged once per pass. Okay. But if it hits minions, you know, in between that, then it's going to do a little bit of reduced damage, right? So 15% per. But, I mean, like, Thresh walks up, like, hooks somebody level 2, or Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank could even hook someone level 1, and you're probably going to kill him. Like, Blitzcrank hooks somebody into a bush, you just auto-attack, Q, auto-attack. That's 340 damage from you. Blitz probably at level 1 with his hook and an auto-attack is probably going to do, like, an extra 150 or something. Like, they're dead. I mean, you're doing, like, 70% of their health or something with Sivir. Just at level 1 with a Q and a couple of auto-attacks. Like, I can't describe to you how overpowered that is at level 1 and level 2. So that is absolutely brutal for level 2 all-in. If you have a Leona or a Blitzcrank or a Thresh or even a Rakan that can knock someone up, anybody that can CC at level 2. Taric. I mean, Taric, level 2, like, if he walks up, Qs somebody, or walks up, stuns somebody with his E, and then drops 2 auto attacks, his stun at level 1 does 100 damage. So his stun plus that Sivir Q is 300 damage. They both drop 2 auto attacks. Taric's empowered. How much do Taric's empowered auto attacks do? I think they do quite a lot for early on. 100% attack speed, deal 22 plus 15% of your bonus armor. Typically, you're going to roll up with probably, I don't know, 40 bonus armor? Maybe not that much. Let's see, 12. Probably going to have like 25 bonus armor. So, you know, like 5 damage. Level 2, you're going to do 26. Bonus damage. His base damage is pretty high. So at level 2, you're going to do 59 damage, so and you get 100% attack speed. So 59 damage, so you do a Taric E for 100 damage at level 1. You're level 1 of this ability. That's 100 damage. You're going to get 2 Taric auto attacks because they're very fast for 58 damage apiece. That's going to be 100 plus basically 120. So that's 220 plus an extra 60. So that's 280 damage from Taric at level 2. Plus Sivir. Boomerang Blade does 200. What did I say? 280 plus 200 is 480. Plus 2 auto attacks for 75 a pop. Wait, I'm losing track. So that's 480 plus what? 150. That's 630. That's it. I mean, that's basically it. Like, they're dead. That's 630 damage. Now, yes, some of that's going to be mitigated by armor and some other crap, but you're going to gain some extra auto attack damage in there too while you're chasing them down. Sivir can flash in, land a couple more autos. Oh, level 2 you can ricochet, by the way, if we're talking level 2 now with Sivir. So that basically gives you a free auto attack because it's an auto attack reset. So it's 200 damage, and then it's attack, ricochet to reset your auto, attack again. That's 3 attacks. So that right there is like 700 damage. I mean, Jesus, like that's so much damage. That's ridiculous. That's way more damage than like a Jhin. You're like, oh, Jhin with lethality early on. That's brutal, man. You land that grenade and your W and you auto attack someone with your 4th auto. No, like maybe that was a lot of damage, but this is in the ballpark. Like, it's insane early damage. So that's been Sivir's problem for a while now. After they nerfed her a lot, is they wanted her identity to be, okay, well, she sucks early, she can get bullied out by everybody, but she has really good wave clears, she has great utility, and she has great scaling in team fights later. Well, just wipe out the weakness early, and boom, you have a perfect champion, basically, that has almost no weakness now. So she still has low range. She has very low base health. But she's really hard to lock down with that spell shield. It can block all kinds of things. It can block hooks. It can block like Nautilus missiles. It can block all kinds of things. It's very, very difficult to lock onto her with the spell shield. And she's very fast. So whenever you damage an enemy champion with a basic attack, you get 30 bonus movement speed. So it's great for chasing people. So you're not running away from her in lane. So once you do that all in level 2, they're not running. If they flash, you just flash after them, and you're going to run them down. So you're going to get an extra, 30 bonus movement speed. So they're not getting away. So it's just like Vayne, sort of. I don't know exactly Vayne's numbers, but when she's chasing people, she gets that extra speed. Yeah, but you know what Sivir can do? She can run away from people and do the same thing. So she can kite people with this, or she can chase people with it. So that makes her extremely versatile and extremely fast and difficult to get a hold of. So she's tough to lock down with abilities. She's tough to run down because she can kite so well. She does insane early damage. Oh, and by the way, all that damage you can do to a single target, you can just do that to a minion wave too. Now it's going to do a little bit less reduced damage, but that makes her wave clear early just like absolutely obscene. Like it's already crazy. And late game, if you didn't know this about Sivir, her ricochets can critically strike. Riot decided to do this a couple of years ago, and they do up to 70% of your total AD, and it's for your next 3 basic attacks on a 6-second cooldown, so it's almost permanently up in team fights. And by the way, when you have On the Hunt, when your ricochet is active, you just get a free, on the house 30 to 60% bonus attack speed. Why? That's so good. So I think I did some math here on the sheet, didn't I? Let me see. No, I talked about it to the stream, but I didn't talk about it, do the math here. I'll do it really quick for you, and then we'll move on. But I think I need to tell, like, exactly why Sivir is so ridiculous, because people may not understand it if you weren't around in the tank meta last year or the year before that. Anytime tanks are good, Sivir's good because of her ult. But all of this stuff makes her really good for other reasons also. That's what makes her overpowered now. So let's not even take if you have Infinity Edge and the bonus critical strike, because that all applies to bounces too. Let's just do normal stuff. Okay, so let's say that you have 200 AD and you throw a boomerang with ricochet and it crits. All right, so let's say that it's a team fight. There's 5 people all grouped up within a reasonable vicinity. I'm not sure what the bounce distance is. It's probably like 200 or something. It's got a pretty decent little bounce to it. It's indefinite. To nearby unaffected units, dealing them physical damage until none remain in range. There is no limit to the amount of units this can hit. It is unlimited. I'll explain what that means here in a second too. But in a team fight, let's say 5 people are grouped up. You hit your primary target, critical strike, 400 damage when you have 200 AD. Okay? It's 70% on a ricochet. So that's 140. So 200 goes down to 140. That can critical strike too. So that's 280 on all subsequent targets. So you've got your 400 damage. You've got your 280 times 4 additional targets plus 400. 1,520 damage, which is 200 AD, not including like critical strike off of Infinity Edge. Just you land a crit with 200 AD, which is pretty easy to get to. That's like 1 item, 1.5 item with scaling. 200 AD, just a casual 1520 per auto attack. Per auto. So you throw another one and crit, that's 3,000 damage in just a handful of seconds. I mean, heck, even if it doesn't crit, every time you attack, 140 times 4 plus 200, 760. So every time you auto attack, you're doing 760 damage in a team fight that can crit, which is 200 base AD. That's ridiculous. And it says until there are no targets available. This means that she has excellent wave clear. If you throw this on a minion wave, it can hit all 6 minions and bounce. If you're trying to siege Sivir, for example, at a tower, it can bounce to everybody that's sitting around trying to siege that tower, in addition to all the minions. There is no diminishing returns here. It does full damage to each person. So it will deal the full damage. The extra you know, the bounce damage. It'll deal that 70% to each minion and each ally that's trying to sit around and siege. This does reduce damage if it hits extra people with the Q. This does not. So she can wave clear an entire wave and simultaneously, like, knock your entire team to half health if you try to siege her. This has happened before when Sivir was out of control. You're just like, oh my god, I can't even try to siege her because she kills me while she clears minion waves. Like, it's ridiculous. It basically costs, like, almost no mana to keep this up. It's just nasty. The spell shield's really good. Oh, and by the way, nearby allies, for 8 seconds, get a bonus movement speed. 8 seconds! Like, their initial movement speed of just, like, insanity for 40, 50, 60% only lasts for a couple of seconds. But still, 20% for 8 seconds is ridiculous. You are not getting away from her. Or any, and she, don't forget, this stacks with her doing extra damage. Or getting this extra bonus movement speed for 2 seconds when she damages people. You're not getting away. If she, and its effect radius is 1,000. That's huge. That's massive. So if she throws this on when there's a Maokai on your team, or a Cho'Gath, or a Sejuani, or a Nasus, like, you're not getting away. They will catch you. They will kill you. You will not escape. Also, you will not catch them. If you manage to try to catch her out, or her team when they're out of position, you're just trying to make an ambush. Boom, she's gone. So she's one of the few AD carries that can actually roll up, like, wave clear a side wave, push it to tower, you know, almost instantly, and then just peace out if she needs to run away. Now, I don't recommend splitting that much with her, but it's on the table. You can do it if you have to. She's the best split pusher, AD carry, because she can get away from anything. You send 3 people at her, you're not going to catch her. She's just going to throw on the hunt, pop her spell shield, and just bounce out of there, and you're not going to run her down. So that, I mean, that's just it. That's it. She's crazy. She scales extremely hard with critical strike, which is a really good stat right now. After they buffed all the crit items, no one can punish her early because they just nerfed lethality, which we'll talk about here in a second. So she gets a free laning phase. She can beat up people in the laning phase if she wants to. She can just wave clear and keep continually pushing people to tower and just roam around the map if she wants to. So, you know, you got a Taric bottom with her. You're facing a very defensive lane, you know, like Janna Vayne or something like that. You just push them into the tower and then just go, you know, run middle and gank the Syndra in the middle. Come up running like 600 move speed at level 6 or something. Maybe it's not that high, but just roll up 600 move speed for 8 seconds with you, your ally, your jungler, whatever, kill middle and go to a dragon or something. I mean, her utility is just through the roof. So this one, I am pounding the table. She is going to be, if not the best, certainly a top 3, maybe top 2 AD carry in competitive. She will be the best in competitive with this change. I will guarantee you that. Like, maybe Callista in competitive might outshine her. I don't think so, though. I think that Sivir is going to be the best competitive AD carry on this patch. Like, I really don't even think it's going to be that close, honestly, with that change to her Q. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And her synergy with Taric, who's another champion that's extremely good on this patch. And her synergy with Maokai, Nasus, Cho'Gath, just all of these tank clowns. When you send in the clowns, they're going to come rolling up. And she kites. Like I said, she kites tanks very well. She's good with tanks. She's good against tanks. I mean, you got 8 seconds with your ult to just run around and do whatever you want to the tank. Just run circles around him. So I can't say enough about how ridiculous she's going to be. And I think she's going to be a terror in solo queue as well. She was already getting played by some teams starting at the end of this last LCS week. People figured out, oh, you can put her with Taric. I think Cloud9 did it. But yeah, I think she's really, really good, especially after they nerf all the lethality stuff, and all the tanks are still good. They didn't touch Maokai, and now they're making her just a butcher early game with that Q. It's on. We are back in a Sivir meta. Love it or hate it, that's what it is. Okay. Twisted Fate, minor buff, mostly irrelevant. he doesn't matter. He's not very good in a tank meta because, you know, what do you do if, you know, people come running at you with the Righteous Glory? I guess you can gold card him. I don't think it's going to matter. He's not that great right now. He's okay. Xerath, doesn't matter. They're just going to run at him, bulldoze him, pile drive him, dive him. Who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter if you dive. If you have a Cho'Gath with 6,000 health, your tower really doesn't mean anything anymore once he gets Gargoyle Stone Plate. So, I mean, Xerath can be good if you're like a an aimbot booster type of person, but or a scripter. I don't think it's going to matter that much, though. I think he's okay, but I just don't think he's going to be able to hang in there. Zach, pretty big nerf. I still think he'll be relevant. I still think he'll be pretty good. I didn't read what they said here about him, but good clear speed, so that's quite an extra cost to his health. Pretty longer, like a significantly longer Q cooldown. Unstable matter does a lot less damage. It is going to hurt his clear speed, like they said. I think he's still good. I just think that he's decidedly, like, not as good as Maokai and Cho'Gath now. I think he's kind of in the Gragas, Sejuani, Zac camp. I think those three are all pretty good still, but I think they're definitely a step down from Cho and Maokai right now. So he's still good. He's still good, but I think that's definitely gonna knock him down a peg. Ziggs, not gonna matter. It's cute. It's interesting. I've been saying this for a very long time. They should lower the cooldown and satchel charge. I still don't think this is low enough. I think they should start him because you don't max this. This is like the second thing that you max. You max your bouncing bomb first and then this second, I believe. And 24 is just too long. Like, they need to make it like, I don't know, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10 or something like that. I think would be a much more appropriate cooldown curve for him, so that he has something every now and then that he can use to escape. Because it's already kind of a skill shot, you know, like, it's already sort of hard to aim correctly to stop people. And it doesn't really do that much damage. It does a lot to towers, but it doesn't, like, if it was lower cooldown, it's not going to help his, like, trade patterns that much, because you don't use it to trade, you just use it as an escape, typically. You don't use it to wave clear, really. I think they're cool interactions. I don't know. It's okay. I just think that Talia is the premier poker right now. We'll talk about her here in a second. This is just where they nerfed Singed. Yeah, they nerfed his ult cooldown by quite a lot, his base health by quite a lot, and his health growth by quite a lot. Adaptive Helm, this is awful. I really hate that they are buffing this item so much, because that's just really going to hurt the only AP that could possibly deal with tanks most of the time. The sustained damage 80 champions, like the Ryzes, the Cassiopeias, the Azirs. I feel like this is just too hardcore. Because already a lot of AP Rumble, I mean, a lot of AP are already going to have a hard time dealing with tanks once they have their Spirit Visage, but now this is just like, this is just so much. So much, because it's already a good item. But now it's basically, they take 20% reduced damage from these sustained damage champions, and it's already a good item. It already gives CDR, it already gives a lot of MR, it gives good health. It's already good. And now it's just going to take it to the next level. So I think that if there's a fed Cassiopeia or Azir, I think it should be good against tanks. Like, they should have to buy multiple AP or multiple magic resist items if they want to deal with a fed AP. But now they don't. They just buy Adaptive Helm, and that's it. You know, maybe an all-purpose item like Gargoyle Stone Plate. But they should, like, have to specifically itemize into magic resist if they want to deal with that. And this gets around Void Staff, too. This doesn't affect Void Staff because it's not magic resist. So Void Staff doesn't reduce the amount that's resisted here. It's a separate stat. So I think that creating a new stat on this item effectively that circumvents Void Staff and its penetration that always gives this resist, I think is just really toxic for the meta. It's just making tanks way too strong with no answer from AP, which means everyone's going to be running AD. And that's just going to be even stronger because tanks... AD is a very valuable stat. If they get to, or armor is, if they get to buy armor, that helps them dive tower sooner, that helps them just face tank Baron forever, that helps them against AD carries, who are usually the highest sustained damage. You want AP threats to be real, to be something they have to itemize against in order to balance them out. I mean, if they get to sit there and get Thornmail plus, like, Dead Man's Plate or something, you're never going to kill them. So, I don't know. I think it's a big problem. So, we'll see. I'm actually, I know this is a little unorthodox, but this video is already getting a little on the long side. I'm going to pick it up, try to go a little bit faster here. God, it's going to be like a 3-hour video or something, probably. But let me get this. I'm just going to take like 45 seconds here just to go grab some water. I've been talking a lot. Alright, sorry about that. I think I might actually break this up into 2 videos because these patch notes are already like just so long. I mean, this is like 2 hours and I'm not even to the tier list and the meta analysis yet. There's so many changes that I just have to explain. I feel like so. I think we're gonna, after we finish this, we're gonna break it up into a separate video for the meta analysis and tier list. This is legit going to be like a 3.5 hour video if I just do this all in one sitting, because there's just so much going on here. So Duskblade. So Adaptive Helm, pretty brutal. I think you're still going to have to run APs in the middle. Obviously, you can't run an all AD team. I really don't think that Ryze, Cassiopeia, Rumble, I don't think they're big problems right now. They already kind of have a hard time against tanks still because of Spirit Visage. So I don't know why they're doing this to Adaptive Helm. So, I mean, basically, if you get ahead as one of those champions, they always have the option of just getting the Adaptive Helm. It already builds out of mostly Spirit Visage items, and it helps out champions that don't necessarily need the healing off of Spirit Visage. So, like Cho'Gath, for example, can easily run Adaptive Helm and be very effective because he doesn't have any real healing off of Spirit Visage. So, it just makes Cho'Gath a lot better. So I don't know. I think it's already a borderline oppressive item, and I think it's just going to get worse. Oh, that water's so good. Okay, so Duskblade, huge nerf. It was out of line, but I think they're just going kind of overboard in the opposite direction here. So now it does... Yeah, they nerfed it a lot. So initially it did 105 damage. And remember I talked about this item being ridiculous in my last patch notes if you've been following me for a little while. I talked about like just pounding the table like I'm pounding right now about Nasus and Sivir like being out of control. That's what I was saying about Duskblade. And I was right, and they nerfed it. Like they didn't even wait till the next patch. They like nerfed it within a few days or something. So they might do the same with Sivir and Nasus. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did it to Nasus at least. Anyways, so now it does 65 to 320 for melee, and then only 45 to 300, and the ranged no longer procs the slow. Okay, that's it. Rip 80 carry lethality users. It was a fun, couple of weeks here, but I think that Misfortune, Varus never really came back. Jhin, people were trying Jhin again with this. I really thought that was weak in the first place, but Misfortune actually was good when this lasted. But they're done. They're donezo. So Jhin back into the gutter. Misfortune not really that great. All of them are awful against tanks. Lethality is really bad against tanks to begin with. That's why I'm kind of surprised that they nerfed it this hard. Because you know, it was a calculated risk. If you went a lethality champion, you know, if you went someone like Talon, or you went someone like, you know, Jhin, you're just kind of facing the fact, well, if that Malachi gets to 2 or 3 items, there's no way we're killing him, and we're going to lose the game a lot of times. And so if you picked a lethality champion, you were kind of really gambling on winning the early game hard enough to snowball to win the late game, which is a huge risk in solo queue because it's very hard to close out games. Whereas if you went someone that had crit, you know, someone like a Tristana, or someone like a, you know, a Vayne or a Jinx or something like that, then you just might be able to kill tanks and scale into the late game. But the lethality users held those champions in check, because you're like, well, if this Jhin gets a Duskblade and I'm Tristana and I'm just sitting on like a BF sword and a Zeal, he's going to beat me up in lane. So it's a very interesting dynamic where it's like, do you want to risk the early game and lose to tanks later, or do you want to have an answer to the tanks and have to play around a tough early game? So I thought it was an interesting balance. I really did not, there were a few corner cases where, you know, someone like Kha'Zix or someone like Rengar was just doing way too much damage with it. But I think they're being way too hard. I really don't think that Jhin and Miss Fortune were too oppressive with it. I thought they were good, but I thought that they had their weaknesses against other champions that were very popular in the meta, the tanks. So, I mean, this just opens up the door, because now there's not going to be bullies that run Duskblade. You know, there's not going to be your Jins and your Misfortunes that are going to be nearly as strong anymore, which is just going to create free farm lanes for primarily Vayne and Sivir. I mean, Tristana can free farm as well if she wants to. Callista. So, I think that this is just going to open it up for the hyper carries quite a bit. So, that's interesting. But yeah, so that's going to hurt Talon, Kayn, Zed, Misfortune, Jhin, Quinn, Pantheon, Wukong. All these champions are going to be pretty hurt by this. Now, some of them will still be good. Jarvan was like a serious Duskblade lethality user. Now, some of them, like Jarvan and Wukong, I think are still going to be pretty good because they still have utility. You know, the stuff that doesn't really have a lot of utility, it just has raw damage, like Rengar and Kha'Zix and stuff like that, I think they're going to have a super hard time with this. Okay. Knight's Vow. I think this is okay. I mean, it's still going to be a really good item. They're just trying to get people, like, primarily Malachi in the jungle and top lane to, like, not buy this item, pretty much. They want to make it less appealing to Cinderhulk junglers. Because right now, the stats are just so good, even if you're not near your partner, it's still, like, okay as an item. So they're trying to keep it viable for supports, but not really that great for junglers. So, it's okay. Okay, now there are a couple of things in this bug fix. They're talking about attack move. Someone asked me what that is. Basically, you could bind your left click to be your attack move, because typically you have to press A, and then right click, A, right click, A, right click, and that makes you attack the nearest target and slowly move away to orb walk. You can look up like what that is and how to do that on YouTube if you want. I'm not going to go into huge detail here. It's mostly for 80 carries. And they're just adding an ability to do this to toggle it in the game. So this will be good for kind of top-end players. I don't think most people are going to notice this, but it's interesting. They explain it here. There's probably going to be YouTube videos about it if you want to watch that, but that'll be a different thing. This is already long enough. So let's go ahead and move on. Well, there is one bug fix that I really want to talk about here. And I'm not sure how much this is going to matter, but this could potentially be a massive, massive deal. Take one bite of that real quick. I've been working on this video. I've been recording it for 2 hours, and I've spent probably like 3 hours, 4 hours writing this up, researching. It just takes forever. Someone told me on stream that it stuns you for a half a second when you Thresh Flay. I didn't think it was that long. I thought it might be a quarter of a second. If it is truly, if it was, and I tried to look it up, I couldn't find any reliable information online. I didn't look super hard, but I looked kind of hard. if it did stun you for a half a second, that is a massive, massive nerf to Thresh. Massive. I mean, if you haven't been around the game for very long, a half a second is a really, really big deal. Really big deal. On a stun. I mean, this is what put Zyra in the gutter. Part of what put Zyra in the gutter for like 3 years. Her ultimate, back in Season 3, when she was really strong, her ultimate used to knock people up for 1 second, and then when they landed, they were stunned for an additional half a second. Right? They nerfed that off her. They had nerfed a lot of stuff on her, but they nerfed that, and then she's done for like 3 years. And then they rework her. They rework her passive and do some other stuff, and she comes back last year, near the end of last year. And then they change the meta around. They nerf her and all kinds of other stuff, and now she's irrelevant again for the most part. Although she's still okay. She's in a better spot than she was in years past. But, anyways, that half a second made a big deal. What did they do to Alistar this last winter? They changed his combo to where it only knocks people up for 1 second, and they took away the half second. Stop. Change her little outfit.
I just took off her gown.
Hey, a little red. Sun
No.
Is she feeling a little sunny?
She was covered up.
Say. You get that
She was
SPF
waving.
200.
She was waving. You're not supposed to put sunscreen on babies.
I know. But
you don't want to show off her legs.
that's fine. But anyways, like what did they do to Alistar? They took off half a second off of his combo instead of he used to knock him up for 1 second, and then they landed and they were kind of stunned for that half a second. They even compensated Alistar by saying, look, we're putting another stun on his E, right? So it only knocks him up. It only stuns him for 1 second, but then if they stay close, it'll stun him for an additional second. All you have to do is stick close to him and auto-attack him. Doesn't matter. Still garbage. Like, yeah, they did other stuff to Ali. They made his heal less reliable. They made him a lot squishier when he uses his ult. But the big thing was they took away that half a second stun, and he's been in the gutter ever since. So if this truly is taking away a half second stun off of Thresh's Flay, then that's going to be a really, really big deal. Because one of Thresh's big things that he does is he flays people and then hooks. So you flay them and then you hook them. Right? Now they're just going to be able to flay them and they just walk away. So you don't hook them. Pretty much. Or they can just walk to the side to make it really hard to hook them. I think. I mean, it's possible I'm overreacting to this. I thought that the animation, it might have only been like a quarter of a second stun. I don't know how long it is. But when you start messing with stuff like this, when you start taking away people's, like, stuns, that's really big. I mean, this is one of the things that really put Jhin in the gutter, too, for quite a while, or took him down off his domination, is they lowered the slow on his ult. So that it just didn't last just a fraction. I don't remember exactly how much it was. But they just took away, like, a fraction of a second, like a quarter of a second or something. Maybe even less than that off of his slow on his ult, just to make it a bit harder to hit his ult shots. And now it's really, really hard to hit those ult shots against a decent player. So you start tinkering with some of these things, it can be a really, really big deal. So I think people are still going to play Thresh. But this could potentially be a really big deal. So keep your eye on that. It's also going to hurt Thresh that a lot of the hook targets are going to be tanks now. And so that's going to make less appealing targets for him to land hooks and stuns on. So this meta is not going to be very nice for Thresh. But I think this right here, I don't know. I would like someone who's a Thresh-like main, their opinion on it. Maybe some of these pro players, if it ends up sucking really bad, will make a video about it. But I think this is something a lot of people are going to overlook immediately in the patch notes. And I think this is something that really caught my eye that could be a huge deal. I'm not a Thresh main, but I just know that when you start tinkering and removing stuns off of people, or just messing with their mojo, it's really, really bad a lot of the times. And I don't know why they're covering it up in a bug fix section. This should be like frontline and center up there. They're trying to hide it so they don't piss people off or something, but hoping maybe people won't notice. But I think this could be a pretty big deal. The other one that a viewer pointed out was, fix a bug where if Kindred used Q to jump over a wall, the cast range of E would be permanently increased. So yeah, that sounds like a pretty big bug as well that you just might want to mention in the main notes. So that one's curious. Now this is crazy, right? No longer, okay, so the old AP ratio of Heimer, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the notes. I don't think I talked about Heimer, but the old ratio is like, so basically this goes from a 0.6 on Heimer grenades to a 0.75 on all bounces. That's a slight increase to his DPS. The really crazy one though, where's the other one? Hextech micro rockets now correctly do reduced damage after the first hit to Baron Nashor. Does this mean they did not do reduced damage to Baron Nashor? That's what I'm wondering. So if you look at Heimer, they all did full damage with upgrade. Initial wave magic damage. That deals reduced damage right here. Initial rockets. Against minions. Anyways, so it looked like it was doing full damage. And you get additional minion damage. I don't know. It was doing some astronomical amount of bonus damage. And like it was just like one-shotting Baron. I did the math on stream. I don't remember what it was. Like 5,000 damage to Baron or something like that. Pre-magic resist or whatever. But it was just like astronomically just shattering. Maybe that's why some people were playing Heimer. There was like a week there where there was like 5 Heimer games in 2 days or something. Where maybe people were trying to abuse this. I don't know. It didn't work. We lost almost all the games. I think we lost every Heimer game. But maybe that's what was up with that. I don't know. Anyways. Okay. Well, that's going to be it for this portion of the video. It's like 2:20. Man, this is going to be like the longest video I've ever done, I think. If you put both of these parts combined. Which is why we're breaking it up. Because the other part is going to take at least an hour. At least an hour. To go over just all the changes that have been going on in the meta predictions. And with the tier list itself. So that's going to be it for the patch notes. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry I have to break this up, but I really don't want to publish up, you know, a 4-hour video or something. So we're going to break this one into 2. So sorry about that. But do stay tuned. The second part will come up. When I finish recording this one, I'm going to start uploading it. I'll record the other one, then upload that one. So this one, the second one should come up a couple of hours after the first one. So just stay tuned. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.